Hello again, everyone. It's Miss Stewart, and I am back and ready to read Chapter 1 of The Lemonade War by Jacqueline Davies. Um, I'm going to get us started off, and then I will turn it over to someone else. I will stop along the way. Parents who are listening, or teachers who are listening, even one of the things that as we're reading aloud, we also need to think. Students, this is for you too. You can't just read the words on the book. You actually have to think about what you're reading, question things in your mind. So I'm gonna kind of model that for you as I go along. So I will stop every once in a while and I'll ask questions. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 1: Slump. Slump. Noun, a drop in the activity of a business or the economy. So the way this book is written, it has the definition of the word of the name of the chapter. So my first question, the first thing I'm thinking is, why did the author title this book and this specific chapter Slump? I'm wondering. A drop in the activity of a business or economy. So I'm wondering if somebody's in some sort of slump that's happening. Just a thought. Evan lay on his back in the dark, throwing the baseball up in a straight line and catching it in his bare hands. Thwap, thwap. The ball made a satisfying sound as it slapped his palms. His legs flopped in a V, arms stretched up to the ceiling, and the thought that if he missed, he'd probably break his nose made the game just interesting enough to keep going. So, first thing I want you to do is one of the most important things that you can do as you're reading is you always have to think about what you're reading, first of all. But you can also visualize it in your mind. So I'm visualizing what Evan, who's the character in this book, I've already learned that, is doing. So he's kind of laying back in his bed, he's got his arms straight up, he's taking a ball and he's throwing it straight up and throwing it back down in his head. Straight up and throwing it back down in his head. So I'm visualizing what that looks like. And he's right. If he doesn't pay attention to it, what's going to happen? It's going to smack down and hurt his nose. On the floor above, he heard footsteps, his mother's, and then a long, loud, scraping, groaning sound. He stopped throwing the ball to listen. His mother was dragging something heavy across the kitchen floor, probably the broken air conditioner. A week ago, right at the beginning of the heat wave, the air conditioner in his mother's attic office had broken. The man from Sears had installed a brand new one, but left the old one sitting right in the middle of the kitchen floor. The Tresks had been walking around it all week. Scrape! Evan stood up. His mom was strong, but this was a two-person job. Hopefully she wouldn't ask him why he was hiding in the dark basement, and hopefully Jessie wouldn't be in the kitchen at all. He'd been avoiding her for 2 days now, and it was getting harder by the minute. The house just wasn't that big. So this is one of those things where I'm going to stop and think about what I'm reading. It says, hopefully Jessie wouldn't be in the kitchen at all. So I have a couple of wonderings in my head that I'm thinking about. First of all is, who is Jessie? Who is it? And it says he's avoiding her. Evan is avoiding Jessie. So avoiding means trying to stay away from them. They don't want to be near that person. So I wonder who Jessie is, first of all, and why is Evan avoiding them? Those are the things that are going through my head as I'm reading. Let's keep going. See if we can find out the answers. Evan had his hand on the railing when the scraping noise stopped. He heard footsteps fading to silence. She'd given up. Probably the heat, he thought. It was that kind of weather. Giving up kind of weather. Giving up kind of weather? What does the author mean by giving up kind of weather? I think I know. What kind of weather was it? What did the weather say was before? It said it was hot, right? There was a heat wave. That's what they talked about. So if it's giving up kind of weather, I know if I'm outside, if I'm doing something and it's like 90, 100 degrees, I don't want to stay there very long. So I give up very much more quickly than if it was cool outside. So that's what I think the author means by giving up kind of weather. But you have to always think about those things. He went back to lying on the floor. Thwap, thwap. Then he heard the basement door open. Psh. Evan caught the ball and froze. Evan? Jessie's voice sounded echoey in the darkness. Evan, you down here? Evan held his breath. He lay completely still. The only thing that moved was the pins and needles prickling in his fingers. Ooh, think about that feeling. You know how that feels when you're nervous about something? I like that description. He heard the door start to close. Long breath out. But then it stopped and opened again. Footsteps on the carpeted stairs. A black outline of Jessie standing on the bottom step with daylight squirting all around her. Evan didn't move a muscle. Evan, is that you? Jessie took one short step into the basement. Is that? She inched her way toward him, then kicked him with her bare foot. Hey, watch it, would you? Said Evan, swatting her leg. He suddenly felt stupid for lying there in the dark. I thought you were a sleeping bag, she said. I couldn't see. What are you doing down here? How come the lights are off? It's too hot with the lights on, he said. He talked in a flat voice, trying to sound like the most boring person in the whole planet. If he kept it up, Jessie might just leave him alone. Mom's back in her office, said Jessie, lying down on the couch. Working, she groaned as she said the word. Evan didn't say anything. He went back to throwing the ball. Straight up, straight down. Maybe silence would get Jessie to leave. He was starting to feel words piling up inside him, crowding his lungs, forcing out all the air. It was like having a chest full of bats beating their wings, fighting to get out. Look at that description. Why do you think the author, I'm wondering, why did the author put that there? That was extremely descriptive. It explains. I'm going to read that again. He was starting to feel words piling up inside him, crowding his lungs, forcing out all the air. It was like having a chest full of bats beating their wings, fighting to get out. Can you picture that? Have you ever felt that before? Where you're so upset about something that everything just feels like it piles up right here and it's just going to come out of you? That's what the author's trying to get you to understand, exactly how he's feeling here. So that's why the author included that. And it gave us a great picture and a great feeling of how Evan is feeling. I just still wonder why he's feeling this, what he's upset with Jessie about. She tried to move the air conditioner, but it's too heavy, said Jessie. Evan tightened up his lips. Go away, he thought. Go away before I say something mean. It's going to be hot all week, Jessie continued, in the 90s, all the way up to Labor Day. Thwap, thwap. So what do you want to do? Jessie asked. Scream, thought Evan. Jessie never got it when you were giving her the big freeze. She just went right on acting as if everything were great. It made it really hard to tell her to bug off without telling her to bug off. Whenever Evan did that, he felt bad. So what do you want to do? Jessie asked again, nudging him with her foot. It was a direct question. Evan had to answer it or explain why he wouldn't, and he couldn't get into that. It was too complicated, too hurtful. Huh? So what do you want to do? She asked for the third time. Doing it, said Evan. Nah, come on, for real. For real, he said. We could ride our bikes to the 7-Eleven, she said. No money, he said. You just got $10 from Grandma for your birthday. Spent it, said Evan. On what? Stuff, said Evan. Well, Jessie's voice dribbled down to nothing. Evan stopped throwing the ball and looked at her. What? Jessie pulled her legs tight to her chest. Nothing, she said. Right, said Evan. He knew that Jessie had money. Jessie always had money squirreled away in her lockbox, but that didn't mean she was going to share it. Evan went back to throwing the baseball. He felt a tiny flame of anger shoot up and lick his face. So, how's he still feeling? He's still feeling angry. Thwap, thwap. We could build a fort in the woods, said Jessie. Too hot. We could play Stratago. Too boring. We could build a track and race marbles. Too stupid. A thin spider web of sweat dripped itself over his forehead, spreading into his hair. With every throw, he told himself, it's not her fault. But he could feel his anger growing. He started popping his elbow to put a little more juice on the ball. It was flying at a good 4 feet into the air every time. Straight up, straight down. Pop, thwap, pop, thwap. The bats in his chest were going nuts. You remember where they talked about back a couple of pages ago? Said that he felt like he had all these bats. So Here it comes back again. The author brought that back. So what does the author mean by saying that the bats were going nuts? What is he wanting to do? Feels like he's wanting to say something. The author's trying to tell us he's wanting to say something, but he just can't quite get it out. What's the matter with you? Asked Jessie. You've been so weird these last couple of days. Aw, man, here they come. Here they come. I just don't want to play a dumb game like Stratago, he said. You like Stratago. I only picked that because it's your favorite game. I was being nice in case you hadn't noticed. Look, there are only 6 days left of summer, and I'm not going to waste them playing a dumb game. Evan felt his heartbeat speed up. Part of him wanted to stuff a sock in his mouth, and part of him wanted to deck his sister. It's a stupid game, and it's for babies, and I don't want to play a stupid baby game. Pop, thwap, pop, thwap. Why are you being so mean? Evan knew he was being mean, and he hated being mean, especially to her. But he couldn't help it. He was so angry and so humiliated and so full of bats. There was nothing else he could be, except alone. She'd taken even that away from him. You're the genius, he said. You figure it out. Good, that would shut her up for once. Evan watched the ball fly into the air. Is it because of the letter? Jessie asked. Crack. Well, that's a new sound. Evan had taken off his eyes off the ball for 1 second, and just for 1 second, the ball came crashing down on his nose. Crud! Oh, crud! He curled over onto his side, grabbing his nose with both hands. There was a blinding, booming pain right behind his eyes that quickly was spreading to the outer edges of his skull. Do you want some ice? He heard Jessie ask in a calm voice. What do you think? He shouted. Yeah? She stood up. No, I don't want any stupid ice. The pain was starting to go away, like a humongous wave that crashes with a lot of noise and spray, but then slowly fizzles away into nothing. Evan rolled to a sitting position and took his hands away from his nose. With his thumb and index finger, he started to pinch the bridge. It was still in a straight line. Jessie peered at his face in the dim light. You're not bleeding, she said. Yeah, well, it hurts, he said. A lot. It's not broken, she said. You don't know that, he said. You don't know everything, you know. You think you do, but you don't. It's not even swollen. You're making a big deal out of nothing. So I noticed something. First of all, what got him kind of thrown off, the reason he hit his face was she asked the question, is it because of the letter? So my thinking is, what letter, what's happening? So there's going to be a letter that's going to come up later on. But I'm noticing that he keeps saying that she thinks she knows everything. He calls her a genius, and then he says, you don't know everything. So I'm thinking it has something to do, I'm wondering why he keeps saying that. He thinks it has something to do with her thinking she's smarter than him. Just a thought. It's not even swollen. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Evan held his nose with one hand and hit his sister's knee with the other one. We just got the answer to one of our questions. Who is Jessie? One of the questions I asked earlier. Jessie is his sister. You probably could have inferred that earlier because we were talking about his mom and things like that. But the author then explicitly says it here. It's his sister's knee. So let's go back. Sorry. Evan held his nose with one hand and hit his sister's knee with the other. Then he picked up the baseball and struggled to his feet. Leave me alone. I came down here to get away from you, and you just had to follow. You ruined everything. You ruined my summer, and now you are going to ruin school. I hate you. When he got up to the bottom of the steps, he threw the baseball down in disgust. Thud. That's the end of chapter 1. So now he's ruined summer. How he's going to ruin school? It has something to do with a letter. So it's going to be, I wonder, I have not read this book, the past chapter 1, because I wanted to really talk about the questions and think about how I would read it. So I look forward to reading the rest of the book and and hearing other people read it and getting answers to those questions that are in our head. But I hope that through my read aloud, you were able to see how I think through books, how that we need our students to think through books, and how students, you need to think as you are reading. If I would have just read straight through that, being very boring in the way that I'm reading, and I was not thinking about what was happening, I wouldn't have gotten everything I got out of that chapter. So I hope you've been helpful. I do have one final question that I want you to discuss with your family or discuss in your classroom, wherever you're watching this. My final question is, how did Evan's attitude change from the beginning of the chapter to the end? So at the beginning of the chapter, what was he doing? And then what was his attitude and his feelings at the end of the chapter? I hope you enjoyed it. I can't wait to read the rest of the book, and have a wonderful day, and keep reading, reading, reading always.